I am thrilled to be able to introduce to everyone today a wonderful man who we were just discussing how I'd like to be introduced, because I know that he would want me to get the right wording on this. And he is a conscious channel to the I am presence. Is that the way that you would word it, David?
The way that I'm told is that I'm a conscious channel within the monad, which is unity consciousness, just a little bit removed from direct connection to the I am presence. That said, my energy field, which is very integrated, my energy field functions as a channel, but not just a channel where I go out and somebody else comes in. That's not how it works. I'm more of a conscious channel from within the monad or the I am presence. So when I share classes, when I share meditations, when I do sessions with people, my field is able to reconnect people directly to the I am presence.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. And you have a fascinating life story. You've had a fascinating journey in this lifetime. You have gone through extreme experiences to be the person that you are now in terms of your consciousness. And I'd perhaps like to get into a little bit about your journey. And you are also here to represent the Eden template. And we're going to talk about what the Eden template is, which is very much in alignment with what I like to bring to the planet at the moment, which is templates like the Golden Age, which I'm discussing with Ian Welsh, which is like the ideal highest frequency utopian paradigm for what we're wanting to go into, and the Eden template is similar. It's a very pure high template for where we're wanting to go. So I like to discuss this because once people are able to align in their own envisioning with what they want the planet to be, then it's going to be much easier for us to bring it through onto the earth and to draw it in. So you have some very interesting things to share there. I'd like to also hear about your experiences recently with Africa and why you were drawn to Africa. It's a fascinating story there too, because you were the only white person that was that went to this particular incredible sort of ceremony ritual with and I don't want to diminish it in any way, because it's a huge experience, but I'll get you to share it. You'll do it much better than I will. So welcome, David. It's wonderful to have you here and to benefit from all your wisdoms and learnings. And I'd like to start by asking you about your journey here on the earth. I know that you had a very challenging early experience in this lifetime that your soul chose, I guess, for the learnings that you needed to experience and to transmute the lineage, ancestral DNA trauma in your family line. So please share with us a little about yourself and your journey, if you can, please.
Yeah, along those lines, I say I received the full quadfecta of abuse, which was violent physical abuse. I was almost killed when I was 2 by being beaten, and I also was sexually abused and emotionally abused and mentally abused. Mm-hmm. If you looked at my life from the outside, then I grew up in a fairly quote unquote stable middle class household. But within that context, everybody in there, my mother, my father, my stepfather, my brothers, my sister, everybody was abused. So within the context of that, the abuse was normalized. And it for most people, first, I should say, for some people, they would gladly have traded lives with me because of the level of security that was present. I mean, we were always housed, we were always fed, we always had clothes, there was always money to go to school if you wanted to go to school, whatever it might be. And I'm not saying that it was a horrific life on the outside. But when you look at the inner life, then there's just a complete disconnect of everything. And this is not being said to evoke sympathy or pity or anything else. I wasn't a victim. This was my choice to come into this life. And because we all choose the life that we're going to take birth in. That's what our souls do before we come into incarnation. So this was definitely my choice. At the same time, like within the context of my family, my younger brother experienced everything that I did. And he turned out the way that he did because of what happened to him. I turned out the way that I did because, in spite of what happened to me, I refused to let that rule me. And even though I was not unusually, because I'm a child of the '60s and I'm in my late '70s now. I spent decades in drug abuse, which was really and truly just self-medication, just to not have to go unconscious and not have to be able to feel anything of what was stirring around inside of me. But eventually it just grabbed me to where it wasn't going to let me. My ability to stay asleep was not going to be allowed, and eventually I did start to awaken. And let's just say that part of the journey is not really worth talking about, because we all know the kinds of mechanisms that we can go through to be able to once again feel and work with and release and step outside or step through, and no longer have to carry those energies as unconscious frequencies that are running through the body. And we're talking maybe 50 years that it took me to do that.
So David, can I ask, why do you think your soul chose that experience? I think you have sort of indicated that it was to transmute that abuse in the ancestral lineage, and any other reasons that you think that your soul chose that experience in this lifetime?
I can't answer why my soul wanted me to experience that, other than to come into it and end it, to stop it.
Yes.
Just finish it, just take all of the energy of it, because on my father's side, that energy goes back a long ways, many generations. And I've done a lot of generational work, some of which I've only recently discovered how to actually really do, and be able to go as deep into it, because it can be changed, it can be healed.
Absolutely. And I think that what your message is that you like to share is that it doesn't matter what we've been through in the lifetime, however extreme it's been, that we in essence we are not broken, we're always whole. And those experiences are experiences, but at the core of everything we always remain whole, and we are not broken. Could you talk a bit more about the way you view that?
As I say quite frequently to anybody, I don't care what their circumstances are, no matter how broken you think you are, you're not. Nobody is broken. We're here on a soul journey. Each one of us makes agreements before we take birth, what we're here to experience. And some people are just barely starting their journey. Some people haven't started at all. or at least consciously. The issue is that we don't even wake up. We just remember who we are, because this is who are as a soul. This is who, not only who we are, it's who we've always been. And how do you wake up to what you already are?
Which is
You just
God,
remember.
which is the Godhead, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love with your work, because I did a wonderful session with you, and I love that you bypass the mind and the mental body, when you do your work, and you go straight to the emotion, and you get people to go in right to the core of the feelings and the emotion in order to transmute anything that they're holding that no longer serves them. And I think that is key, because our emotional bodies are the ones often that are requiring that attention. So can you tell us a little bit about the practice that you do there to work with the emotions and the feelings?
If you've experienced trauma in any way, anytime you, even if it's subtle, but especially if you've experienced a big trauma, and I'll leave it to the viewers to imagine what that might be, then there is a natural defensive mechanism built into us as humans. And if it's too much to look at, if it's too much to feel, then that part fractures off from us and we no longer can feel it. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the mind. The mind is an absolutely wonderful tool to be able to work with, but the mind cannot help you feel what is buried that you can't feel currently. So in doing session work, my field is able to, if you will, stimulate and help bring to the surface whatever it is within you or the person that I'm working with that is ready to be released. And the way that it's released is you cannot think your way through it. The way through it is to feel it all the way to the bottom, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And if it needs to be expressed, then you express it the way that it's appropriate for you to express it. It could be gentleness, and it could be screaming and yelling and hollering and crying and sobbing and whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's being allowed to feel it all the way to the bottom until there's nothing left to feel, that you felt everything. And when that happens, it releases and lets go. And it doesn't return. It doesn't come back. I will qualify that, because we don't grow in a circle where we just go round and round. We grow in a spiral.
Yeah.
And you may, on a higher realm in that spiral, you may come around to the same frequency that you just released, but on a very a more subtle layer. So, but generally speaking, it lets go. And I'm talking about energies that are in even from this lifetime.
Yes.
So I have clients, I have women clients that have been raped in this lifetime, and we've completely released the energy of it. And then one of the things that you can do when that energy is released is you can repattern it. We're all just making this up. This is everything that is in front of us is our creation. Everything that's in our consciousness is our creation. Since we're the ones that are creating it, well, if you don't like it, create something new. So it is possible to make new neural pathways within your consciousness that completely change that energy to where it's as if it never happened.
And you know, in our Western culture, we're very in the mind, we're very in the mental body, and we're actually taught the antithesis of going in and feeling emotions fully and expressing them fully, you know, freely and without sort of self-judgment. You know, we're not taught, you know, some of the like the African cultures and the shamanic techniques, that they naturally are able to, you know, get in touch with that and be able to express it and release it. But I think in the cultures that we're brought up in here, it's very repressed and suppressed. I mean, you just got to look at the Victorian. We've come from the Victorian era where everything was hidden and secret and pushed down, and emotions were pushed down, and you know, and so we're actually going against a lot of cultural conditioning to be able to do that. So I think to be able to mindfully go in and learn how to connect with the deepest depths of your emotions, and then be able to express that is really important. And there's so many different ways, you know, that, like you say, that you can express it, you know, and even creative ways like dancing or through the voice or movement, or, you know, different ways. And so I think that that's a good point to make, that it doesn't necessarily come naturally to people that have grown up in a Western culture.
So even even our language, we are habituated to it. Even describing that, the way that you describe it is that you think rather than you feel.
Yes, and that's that's what I'm
And
talking about, that influence. Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
this is all an offshoot of being within the last epoch that is just now ending, being in a very patriarchal society, and it's global. No place is excluded from the detriment of what the patriarchy has been,
Mm.
but it's also an offshoot from Atlantean times. So Atlantis was a very mental focused culture,
Right.
and almost all of the people that were there at the end have returned. And in some cases, people were given implants in the brain that basically shut down their natural telepathy, which increased the sense of this is me and that's you, and we're separate rather than we are really one being in different fractalization bodies that we live in.
Yeah. There is no
And
separation.
that's part of what is being repaired. That's part of why all of the Atlantean people have returned, is to be able to heal that so that we don't make the same mistake, because we're going into an entirely new epoch now. We're going into the age of Aquarius. The divine feminine not only is returning, she's here.
Mm.
And how long this is going to take, I have no idea. But there is going to be a balance that is restored. It's not one or the other. It's both and.
Yes. Okay. Well, I would love to hear about your incredible experience where you had that calling to go to Africa. And can you tell us that story about what happened there? It was really beautiful, and it really highlights, you know, the depths of what you've come to bring to the planet at this time as well.
So it needs a little bit of background. So when a soul is created, every soul is given certain gifts and proclivities, certain frequencies. So my soul carries the codes of creation. It carries the codes of creation that are embodied as in the tree of life. So Africa to me is more than what my recent journeys have been like. So one of the reasons that my company is called the Eden Template that I work with is because I carry those codes of Eden. I carry the creation codes. So in the very beginning, Africa, in the very beginning, there was no life on the surface of the earth. It was all internal. It was all inside the earth, and we all know that there are still existing societies that live in the center of the earth. And at one point, the decision was made on a galactic level. It was time for life to be created on the surface. And I'm not saying that I was the only one, because there were many, 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 many beings that were called to come here from other dimensions, other worlds, other universes, to help create the life on the surface, to be able to bring the mountains into existence, and the water and the air and the trees and the plants and the insect and all of the animals, and eventually humans. And so that's part of that ability to be able to connect with the Garden of Eden inside of each one of us. That's part of what I carry.
Yeah.
So in 2018, I became fascinated with Africa. I've been to northern Africa, to Tunisia, but that's completely different than the lower part of the continent, where it's lush and green, et cetera, et cetera. So eventually, I had a major lucid dream in which I was with a friend of mine named Vincent Kutuku on his property in Kenya, and it was sunset, and we were just looking out over the horizon, watching the sun go down, and these three African kings materialized and started walking towards me. I didn't start crying, I started sobbing, because I recognized them. And we had a short conversation, and they invited me to come out into the bush with them. And I knew that meant to come study. But it wasn't so much studying as it is a remembrance, because I've been in this culture on multiple times throughout my incarnational stream. And if you know anything about Mount Kenya, and especially the forest and the land around it, it is a World Heritage Site. It is pristine. You cannot hunt animals in it. You can't cut trees. You can get a permit if you're fortunate to take your animals in and graze, but you can't harvest anything. It is, and if you have the opportunity to go there, and you can sneak away, because it's illegal to go in the forest by yourself.
Oh gosh.
The last thing the government ever wants to have happen is for a tourist to be injured. I mean, there aren't any lions there, but there are definitely a lot of other predators. There's big leopards, really beautiful big leopards.
Wow, it sounds quite pristine.
So as you walk into it, the deeper you go, the less there is the energy of the world around you. So it is phenomenally beautiful. So
can I ask, can you go on, do they take people in on sort of safaris or anything in there, or
that's a side jump. The only way you can go in is with permission from the Kenyan government, and you have to go in with an armed ranger. And by armed, I mean they have machine guns.
Yeah.
So you can, if you can do it illegally, I'm not encouraging you to do it, but that's the only way that you can do it, quote unquote, legally. And you have to give them a valid reason. There are some places that you can go. You can climb Mount Kenya if you want.
Yeah.
But not in the forest. Not in the forest. So anyway, two of my other friends, after having this dream, they were also called to go. And we met in Kenya, and it turns out that we had been called to go to the annual prayer vigil, which circumambulates around Mount Kenya. It takes a full day to drive it. It's about 450 kilometer drive. And we didn't really know anything. We had no idea really what was going to happen. So we misjudged where we needed to was going to start. We ended up being on the northwest side of the mountain, and it starts on the southeast. So we had about a 2-hour drive in the morning to get there, and they were going to start at 9. And we left at 7, so we had plenty of time to get there. It happens on the 27th of the month of December, the day after Christmas. And if you've been to Africa, there's always people walking at the side of the road, and so you can't really speed. It's 2-lane road the entire way, and they start calling us and asking where we are, and we tell them we're on our way and we'll be there at 9. And they said, well, no, we left early. We're already here, and it's just barely 8 o'clock, and there's no way we can speed up. You can't drive faster. So eventually they called one time, and my response was, look, this is an all-day thing. Just go ahead and start without us, and we'll catch up with you. We'll find you. And they said, no, you don't understand. You have to be here. And the 3 of us are looking at each other like, what are they talking about? So unbeknownst to us, the Hopi elders knew that we were coming, especially that I was coming. They had already told the crowd that I was coming. I didn't know this. I'm just folks, really and truly. I'm just people. So we get there, and this is pre-COVID, and this is a pretty large thing in Africa in terms of historical references for them, because this has been going on for a very, very long time. But when the British invaded, they shut it all down. And it wasn't until maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago till they were allowed to have these gatherings again. So we arrive there, and there's maybe 700 people. We get out of the car, and I'm just looking, 800 people. We get out of the car, and we're just looking at a sea of Africans. And then there's myself and Teresa Lutnager, who were the only white people at that point. There's lots of white people all over Kenya. But remember, Kenya is the creation of the English government when they ceded control back there. It's actually 42 separate tribes.
Right.
And the borders are completely artificial, very much like what happened with the Ottoman Empire after World War I, where the British and the Allied forces just started carving up the land and said, okay, you get this, you get that, yada, yada. It's the same thing.
Right.
So we get there, and we're walking across the street just to go around and join the crowd at the back. And this is a really big to-do. There's like 5 or 6 TV crews there and things on that order. It's a really big to-do in Kenya. And no, they don't let us do that. Somebody comes up and grabs us, and they bring us up to the front, turn us around and face the crowd. And it was both embarrassing and I now know it was an honor. But for me at that point, it was embarrassing. And then we were introduced to all of the officials. Maybe 3 of them I might recognize now, but that's only because I've seen them subsequently. And then we met the priest, or whatever word you want to use. Turns out he's a seer, and when I looked in his eyes, he was the man from my dream. He was the king from my dream, and he looked at me and said, "David, I dreamt of you."
Yes.
And his name is Samuel Kamitha, and I said, "Samuel, I dreamt of you." So he then talked for a little bit, just sharing some things that were pretty private for just me, and then said that afterwards he would give us a blessing. But right now he's gesturing to the crowd. There's all these people here for the invocation, which he then did, and afterwards he did give myself and Teresa and Beth Curia a blessing. But when it came time for me to receive it, he heard that still voice say, "No, give him everything." And it was like being struck by lightning 5 or 6 times in a few seconds. Just huge jolts of energy. And I had dreamt of this, not like this in terms of the reality, but in the dream world, that's what it had been. And then understand there's a really deep connection between myself and Africa and this particular tribe and these people in Mount Kenya.
Yes.
Mount Kenya is centric to what we know of historically as the Garden of Eden. And that's one of the reasons that it is protected as it is right now.
Right. Yes.
Is because the energy frequency there is unlike anything that you can. There are correspondences through Europe, especially in Ireland. I mean, they still know who the Fae are, and that's a direct correspondence.
Mm-hmm.
But really and truly, the real part of the real work that was going on there was that in the collapse of Atlantis, what was happening was that the Magi, those that were attempting to enslave people through mind control, through mental control, they were also looking to take all of the things that the Atlantean people had invented, had brought through, and if they could, weaponize it.
Yeah.
And one of the things they really wanted to do was they wanted the master crystal. If the master crystal had been weaponized, it would have had the ability to destroy dimensions. And that was never going to be allowed to be happened. And so a whole group of very advanced Atlanteans got together and they dimensionally shifted the crystal to where you can't find it. It's not here.
Yeah.
It still has a connection to here, but it's not here. Mm-hmm. So the Kikuyu people in Kenya, they speak of a star just off dimension that is constantly radiating an energy that is radioactive in nature, much like the energy from the sun. And that is one of the primary sources of energy that has been driving the evolution that we're all going through. And so what happened was that those beings that sealed the crystal dimensionally, they put the keys to unlock it into their DNA.
Yeah.
And so when it was time, all that was necessary was for any of the people that were there, and I was one, and it didn't matter who it was, because lots of people were called to go to Africa that year. Yeah. And it was just the 3 of us that happened to go. All of us carried those keys, and just walking on the land, the DNA codes were released into the earth. The crystal was unsealed, and it came back into this dimensional sphere. And so if you look at my website, that's exactly what all of us saw, was this huge diamond that is like a sun began radiating, rippling concentric waves of energy out onto the planet. So
can I ask a question? So the master crystal, the essence of that is coming through the Eden template work. It's activating that code within our DNA. Is that what's happening?
You can take the Eden template out of it.
Okay.
And the master, that sun is now here. So everything began to shift with that. Yeah. I mean, there is a correspondence to the Eden template, but you can take the Eden template completely out of the picture, and that star is still there. So as we watch these waves of creation, were just concentrically just radiating from it, and you could see that in front of it life wasn't quite what it could be. And when
Yes.
the wave passed over it, everything started blooming and blossoming and flowering and coming more into being of what it was, or what its potential is. In other words, New Earth was beginning to be created.
Beautiful. And so in your words, the master crystal is the one of the key things that has activated this upgrading of the earth and humanity.
Yeah, it has transformed a lot since it was sealed. So you can't even really call it a master crystal now. What you could call it is a diamond sun.
Right.
And that same sun, that same diamond sun, resides in each human being, even if it's dormant, shut down, closed off, and can't be felt. It's still there. This is more an energetic.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
and
Well, we
so
can all feel the frequency rate rising and shifting all the
yeah,
time. And so that's part of, everything that you're saying, really, I guess.
and it's only increasing in intensity and speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not going to slow down.
No, no. And it's
Yeah.
impacting our sense of time as well. I mean, we know time is an illusion in this reality, the concept of, past, present, future, because all time is simultaneous, but we have a framework of time in this existence that we live in, and that is really shifting as well. It's changing very fast.
Faster than most of us can keep up with, or let's just say it can be challenging.
Yes, very.
And
That's, where did that time go? It's like almost yeah.
remember, we're just remembering who we are,
Yeah.
and who we've always been. So this is a time that has been prophesized by every single culture that has ever lived on the planet, no matter what the specifics of those prophecies might be. But this is the time of remembrance.
Yeah.
And it is not just happening here. What happens here radiates out and reflects into this entire universe, of which this is one of trillions.
Yeah.
But it refracts out to every single aspect of this universe. So there is a major shift that is happening, and we as humans are transforming into something that has not existed before.
It's a very, very profound impact on the entire cosmos as well, because this particular transition that we're going through has never happened in this way before. So it's having an even greater impact, isn't it?
The entire universe is intently watching to see how we do and what it is that we do here. Because coming into 2023, now we actually, all of this last year, we have been cleaning and internally our energy fields, building the strength of our neural pathways, of our nervous systems, to be able to have the strength in place for what is coming in 2023, where we begin to actually co-create what it is that we want. What kind of a world do we want to live in? And it's not a given what that world is going to be. That creation is dependent upon all of us.
Yeah, on the collective consciousness. Yes.
And some of the collective is deciding that, I really liked the third grade. I think I'd like to repeat it again.
Not me.
Not me either, but some are adamant. I don't want to change. I don't want to do this. Some are choosing to leave the planet.
Yeah.
And please don't misunderstand me. Nobody ever dies.
No.
Nobody ever dies. We are all eternal beings. always have been, always will be. That's what being eternal means. So, but people can, we all have the ability to make a choice, and some are choosing not to do this. They don't want to, and some are choosing to leave.
Can you estimate roughly, you may not want to do this, but can you estimate roughly how many people do you think are choosing to go forward with this next level?
I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever that number is, it's much smaller than what most people would think. But it doesn't matter.
Because we're all eternal. Yeah.
It only takes enough.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the classic way that consciousness works, even on a mundane 3D level, if a company has a new product that they want to introduce into the market, say of a city, they want to introduce it into Los Angeles or New York or Seattle, they don't blanket everybody. They know that if they can reach 12% of the population, everybody knows about the product.
Yeah.
So this is all happening energetically and telepathically with everybody. So for someone that is aligned in their energy field and they remember who they are, they have more impact than 1 million people or 10 million, 20 million, or 100 million that are not. So it doesn't take a lot of people.
Yeah.
It just takes the right people.
Sure, absolutely. And they don't have to necessarily do anything. They just have to hold their energy on the planet, in the space that they're in, don't they?
We just hold our frequency. We just hold it steady. We don't waver. We're like a lighthouse that is lit all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't discriminate.
Yes. Yes.
The light doesn't say, I'm sorry, your ship out there floundering. No, we're not going to give you a beacon. It doesn't work that way.
No. Well, as a parent with children, you wouldn't say that to any of your children. And so it's the same concept, isn't it? They're all God's children. Everyone is. So, David, I'd love to, before we finish, I'd love you to share a little bit more about the Eden template. And, people can contact you to have sessions with you and to do your classes as well. And I will leave all the information below for people to contact you if they're resonating, with the work that you're sharing and with your energy, as I'm sure many people will. And so if you could just share a little about the Eden template, that would be beautiful.
So the template came to me as a transmission that first winter in December when I was in Africa. And as most transmissions come, they come very quickly, almost in an instant. And if it had come through a conversation, it might take a week of talking to be able to experience it all, to be able to comprehend it. But they come through very quickly, and then you get to unpack them, you get to unfold it and feel what's there. So the essence of the template is, and realize that it's way more complex than this simple explanation. But the very first class that I offer is called Awakening Your Original Soul Blueprint. And it is an awakening of the Kundalini force at the base of your spine, which gets choked off. So every time that we die, because we're multi-lifetime beings, every time that we die and we have not realized and remembered who we are, the body has an automatic fear response because the body believes that's who we are, and we believe that we're the body. And so there's an automatic fear response that is generated. Doesn't matter how peaceful we are with the process, it has nothing to do with that. It's just the body thinks it's going to be worm food and this is the end. only, as we all know, it's not. And so if you imagine that you've lived 1,000,000 lifetimes, could be more, could be less, but every time you've died, it creates that fear response creates a little smoky thread, and it wraps around the connection point at the base of your spine, at the very root, at the bottom of the coccyx bones. And now, if you've lived 1,000,000 times, it's like a really tightly compacted ball of yarn, and it chokes off the life force current that is everybody's birthright. And it chokes it off to such a degree that we don't remember who we are. And so we live our lives, and we're very energetic in the beginning, and then we start to wear out and wind down, and then we die. And so what the Eden template does, what the activation does, is that it opens that current. And this is from my seeing. It could be different from somebody else's, but when that current opens, it's that tightly wound ball of smoky threads just vaporizes and disappears, and what is left at the base of your spine is an incredibly small and yet impossibly bright star.
Is that in one session that they're able to achieve that, or is that a process of doing sessions?
Both.
Okay, depending on the person. Yeah. How do people know that they are holding, that they have that within them that needs to be cleared, just so people that are watching can identify whether that's something that they have within them that they need to clear?
How do you know that you're wearing a pair of glasses?
Because I can see them and I can feel them. Yeah.
You know they're there.
Yeah. Okay.
So once that opens at the base of your spine, and this is a very gentle process because it is self-regulated by each person's consciousness. So nobody can overamp themselves with too much energy, too fast or too quick, because their own consciousness is going to modulate it, that in order to increase the current beyond what comes through in the beginning, they have to go through their own processes in terms of their growth and clear their energy field, and rewire or reimagine the wiring in their neural net, in the consciousness that they carry. And so what it does is that once that star opens, it begins to send a current up through the center of your spine, out the top of your head, which then cascades down around you, setting up a vertical toroidal field.
Yeah.
And then we take a much deeper journey into the body and return to the singular spot in the heart that you might call the energetic source of Eden inside yourselves. We dissolve the body, surrender it, and then rebuild a new one made with the elements of light. And then once everything is completely built, then it opens up from the inside, and it turns out that that's in our heart.
Yeah.
And it creates the horizontal toroidal field. So now you have a vertical one and a horizontal, as above, so below, as within, so without. And that's just the beginning. That's just the initial opening. If you've looked at my website, you know that I offer a series of classes, one of which is called Freedom from the Known. Because if you truly want to transform your life, you can't use anything of what you know in order to do it. How do you connect to what is beyond comprehension and the mind cannot grasp by using the mind? It's like digging a hole in the ocean with a shovel. It's just not going to work. So it's a really, really incredible journey. It is a journey of transformation that eventually leads you back to your direct connection to source.
It reminds me of that quote, the definition of insanity. I forget the person that said it. Is like doing the same thing over and expecting a different outcome. You can't,
It was
yeah.
it was Einstein,
Oh, yes. Yes. So,
and he also said the mind makes a wonderful servant and a horrific master.
yeah, true. Yeah. Okay, well, that sounds wonderful, David. And are there any sort of, well, for what we're all experiencing at the minute on the earth, it's very intense and challenging for a lot of people. Are there anything that you'd like to share about this moment that we're all going through together that could be potentially, encouraging or hopeful for the people that are finding it very intense and challenging at the minute?
First off, let's drop the word intense. Let's just say that everything is amplified.
Yes.
Intense kind of implies that it's more than we can handle, and it's not.
Yeah.
All of us came here for this. Everybody on the planet knows what was going on, what was going to happen before they took birth, even if they're unconscious of it. So, if I could say anything, it's be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself. Sleep is probably your best friend right now, because the body is literally, we are literally being asked to drop everything. And I do mean everything, all of our conditioning, whether that be personal or familial or cultural or religious or whatever it is. We're being asked to drop everything and just be as a frequency connected directly with source, because we are source. And remember to be compassionate to those that don't have a clue what's going on. Everybody that is still very much not remembering who they are, they're still receiving all of these energies. I mean, look at recently, we had just a couple of days ago 13 solar flares in one day.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of coronal mass ejection, but it still sends out frequencies. We're also completing a multi 100,000-year cycles and cycles and cycles. We're transforming into crystalline instead of carbon-based. We're becoming a species that has never existed before. We're making a switch as great as moving from Homo sapien, from Cro-Magnon into Homo sapiens, or as Elizabeth Wood says, we're becoming Homo luminous. We're becoming humans of light. And even if nobody has any awareness at all, they're still experiencing these energies. The Earth and our entire solar system is traveling through an area of photonic energy that we've never been through before. And it's really strong. It's very powerful. It puts you on the floor every now and then because the energy is so amplified.
Yes.
I just about said intense, but it's very amplified.
Yeah.
And every single cell in the body is being asked to transform itself.
I think it's good to give your body and yourselves a message. I love you so much. You're doing a fantastic job. Good on you. Be your own cheerleader.
and sleep is still your best friend.
Yeah.
This is big. It's really big work that we're all doing. So I always encourage people, which I encouraged you in the session that we did together, is be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Matt Kahn one time had a quote that said, if you're speaking to your own inner dialogue, the way that you're speaking to yourself, if you're not speaking to yourself in the same way that you would a 3-year-old child that is in pain, and be gentler. Be really, really gentle.
Yeah.
Really, be really kind. And
Often people are harder on themselves than they are to other people too, inwardly, you know.
as the Dalai Lama says, if your compassion doesn't expand to yourself, you haven't found what the compassion is yet.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a lama that was captured when the Chinese invaded Tibet and taken to one of their prisons, and he was there for a long time, many decades.
Mm.
Eventually, they released him, and he then had a private audience with the Dalai Lama, who has shared some of the information that was part of that meeting. And at one point, this Lama was describing that there came a point to where he almost lost faith, and the Dalai Lama interrupted him. If I remember correctly, if I'm misquoting this, then please, everybody, accept my apologies. But he said, he thought that he meant that he was going to be killed because he was tortured regularly. And he said, no, that wasn't it. I almost lost faith. I almost lost compassion from my captors, the ones that were torturing him.
Mm.
Now that's about as real as you can get to where you have compassion for the beings that have been torturing you for over 20, 30 years.
Mm.
And so that's the kind of compassion that we need to have for ourselves.
Yeah.
The kind of compassion that loves ourselves with immense gentleness, no matter what it is that we're going through, because we're all going through this. So I always tell all of the people that come to, especially the big class that I offer, which is Freedom from the Known. It's 11 weeks. It's 11 weeks long, and I always encourage everybody to be as gentle as you possibly can with yourself, because we're all in this. We're all in the same boat.
Mm. 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 And then if you can extend that compassion to self, then it's much easier to extend it to everyone in the world around you. If it has to sort of emanate from self first before you can be able to feel it for others.
When it awakens in you, and you know who you are, there's no question that you know. It's very different than thinking. You cannot think about this. You can use your brain, yes. It's a necessary tool, yes. But you cannot think your way into this level of consciousness.
Yeah.
What you can do is just be.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, at this state, I don't know that there's anything that any of us need to do.
It's good to
I
hear.
mean, I'm like everybody else. Sometimes I meditate, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I watch movies, sometimes I don't. But there's no practice that is going to get you there.
Sure. Well, you do emanate a very strong sense of peace, inner peace, David, which is beautiful. And I think that they're really profound words for people to hear, which is to just be content to be, and that you don't have to do anything to earn your existence to be here at this time, you know, or to be worthy, you know, which is misconception that many people have. Yeah.
At a certain point on our journeys, we don't just become peaceful, we become peace.
Yeah.
It becomes a part of, it becomes the very essence of who we are. And there's nothing special about me at all. Not in the slightest. I'm just spokes.
So if you can do it, then everyone can. Is your point there? Yeah.
I'm no different than anybody else, and at the same time, if somebody is in a crisis of pain, that they, if they're heavily into depression or self-medicating with drugs or alcohol or whatever else it might be, then maybe some intervention is helpful,
Mm.
whatever it might be. But from our perspective, it's always remembered to hold our compassion for everybody, because there is nobody that is unworthy.
No.
This is everybody's birthright. It's who we are.
Mhm. Oh, that's a beautiful note to finish on. Thank you, David. That was really, really beautiful, deep, reflective, contemplative, multi-dimensional chat. So thank you. I loved it. And I would also like to share that you are going to be joining us for one of the soul healing groups, which will be really beautiful. We hope if we can align the time. There is a bit of a time issue where you're at Mount Shasta. So America's always a bit tricky with Australia, but we'll see what we can do, and we'd love to welcome you on there as well. If anyone would like to join, please contact me for that. And already the soul healing group, I've mentioned it to them. So,
and one more thing that I forgot to mention is that every year on my birthday, in the tradition of most of the indigenous peoples of the world, when it's your birthday, instead of receiving gifts, you give gifts. And every year I offer a class for free, and which is, I'm again doing that. And this year, although it's not my birthday, it will fall on January 1st at 11 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, which is like 5 a.m. on the second Australian time. So for those of you that are early risers, I'll look forward to seeing you. If you wish to sign up, you can go to my website and register for it. And it is free. And if it's just too early in the morning and you're unable to attend, there will be a recording that's available that I'll send out to everybody.
that's beautiful, David. It is 5 a.m. in the morning Queensland time. However, in New South Wales, it's a bit more friendly. It's 6 a.m. the rest of Australia, so that might help. So that would be. It sounds incredible, actually, the work that you're going to be doing in that session, and I'm very excited to be joining. So thank you, David, and that's a lovely gift that you're giving. So. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I love to do this. So thank you.
To them. So thank you again, David. Beautiful to chat with you. Thank you for everything that you're doing on the planet at the moment, even though I know you're not special or anything, but still I want to acknowledge you. And thank you for sharing your time with me today.
It is absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me as your guest. And if I might make one more comment before I leave,
Absolutely.
since you're talking about a soul healing group,
yes,
souls do not need to be healed.
Yes,
Souls are always perfect.
True.
Always. That's their very nature.
Yes.
And
I'll have to change the title. I agree with you.
There's nothing wrong with calling it a soul healing group. Not at all. Not in the slightest. It's just a perspective on what it is. And really and truly, since we are all always the self, there's not a single being in the universe that is not the self, that is not the creator, that is not the Godhead. So what is it that why do we struggle so much just to remember who we already are?
Good question.
the creation of new earth energies, which is really happening strongly now.
Mm.
It's necessary to leave behind, quote unquote, all of it. What is the biblical quote? And trust me, I'm not a biblical scholar, but when I was a child, I thought as a child, and now that I'm a man, I put away childish things. And except, of course, we all have our inner child inside of us, and they are one of the most delightful parts of who we
Yes,
are.
that's a very beautiful part of ourselves. Yes, good to reconnect with that too. That's a remembrance as well. Yeah.
So thank you for having me. If any of you resonate with what has come through, I have another course, the next iteration of the Freedom from the Known course, which is 11 weeks. Will begin on January 7th, and you can find out more information on my website.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, David.